My name is Mrs. Meyer. I am 38 years old. I want to tell you my story. It began on a very cold morning. I woke up and felt a heavy pain in my head. The pain was sharp, like a knife pressing. I tried to stand, but I felt weak. The kitchen smelled of coffee, but I could not drink it. Even the sound of a spoon in a cup hurt me. I sat at the table and pressed my hands against my forehead. My husband looked at me. His eyes were worried. "You should see a doctor," he said. I wanted to say no. I wanted to say it was only stress, but the pain was too strong. My children asked why I looked sad. I could not answer. I only said, "Mama is tired." Later that morning, I went to the clinic. The doctor was tall, with kind eyes. He asked, "Where is the pain?" I touched my head and said, "Here. It comes every day. Sometimes strong, sometimes less, but it is always there." He pressed my shoulders with his hands. "These muscles are hard," he said. "Do you worry much?" I told him yes. I worry about money, my children, my house, my work. He smiled and wrote something on a paper. He gave me 2 things. The first was pills. "Take one each day," he said. The second was a list. On the paper were simple activities: yoga, meditation, breathing. He said, "Your pain comes from stress. These will help." His voice was calm. I wanted to believe him. That evening, I put the paper on the table. I looked at it many times. I also put the small white pills near my water glass. My daughter asked, "What is this, Mama?" I said, "Medicine for my head." She looked serious and said, "Will it make you better?" I said, "I hope so." The next morning, I started the new plan. I rolled out a mat on the floor. I moved my arms slowly. I tried to breathe deep. At first, it felt strange. My body was stiff. My mind was full of thoughts. I wanted to stop, but I told myself to try. After 10 minutes, I felt calm. But later the headache returned. I still took the pill with water. For 7 days, I did the same. I woke early. I stretched. I breathed. I sat in silence. I took the pills at the same time each day, but the pain stayed. Sometimes it was soft, like a shadow behind me. Sometimes it was hard, like fire in my head. At night, I lay awake. I listened to the clock on the wall. I wanted to sleep, but my eyes stayed open. One afternoon, I was in the kitchen. I wanted to cook soup. I cut vegetables, but the smell of onions made my head worse. My hands shook. I left the pot on the stove and sat down. The soup burned. My husband came home and asked what happened. I whispered, "My head hurts again." He did not answer. He walked away. I felt small. The children also saw me weak. My son asked, "Why are you always in bed?" My heart broke. I wanted to play with him, but I could not. The pain stole my time with them. I thought, am I still a good mother? The question stayed in my mind. After 1 week, I went back to the doctor. I sat in the chair with heavy eyes. He asked, "Do you feel better?" I said, "No. The pain is still here. It comes when I am nervous. It comes when I try to rest." He looked at me. Then he asked, "Do you sleep enough?" I answered, "I don't know." I close my eyes, but I wake many times. I never feel fresh in the morning. The doctor wrote again. He gave me more papers. He said, "Take these for stress. Take these for nervous feelings. Take these to sleep." He placed the papers in my hand. His voice was firm. I felt confused. I asked, "Do I need all of them?" He said, "Yes. Your body needs help. These will help you." When I came home, I opened a new box from the pharmacy. Inside were bottles of tablets. White, pink, yellow, green. I placed them all in one big box on the table. The box looked full, too full. I stared at it for a long time. The next morning I took the new pills, one for stress, one for nerves, another to sleep at night. My stomach felt heavy. My eyes were slow, but still the pain stayed in my head. I thought, how many more pills will I need? When will this end? At night I looked at the box again. I felt fear. The box was not empty. It was growing. Every week I added more. It looked like a mountain of medicine. I asked myself, am I sick in my body or sick in my mind? I did not know. My daughter came to me one evening. She sat close and touched my hand. She asked, "Mama, when will you smile again?" My throat was dry. I wanted to tell her the truth, but I only said, "Soon, my dear." She kissed my cheek. After she left, I cried. The tears burned, but the pain in my head was stronger. I went to bed with the sound of my own breath. I wanted sleep, but my body refused. The pills made me slow, but they did not bring peace. I stared at the ceiling in the dark. The house was quiet, but inside me was noise. I thought of tomorrow. Another pill, another try, another pain. The next morning I sat near the window. The sun was bright, but I felt no joy. I remembered the doctor's words again. Yoga, meditation, breathing. I tried again. I closed my eyes and took deep breaths. For a short time I felt calm. But when I opened my eyes, the box of pills was still there on the table. My pain was still in my head. My heart was heavy again. This was only the beginning. My story with pills, pain, and long days had just started. Before I continue my story, please subscribe, share, and tell me where you are listening from. Your support means a lot to me. Now let's continue. The box of pills grew each week. When I opened it in the morning, the bottles looked like little soldiers. I am waiting for Asi, me. I took one for nerves, one for stress, one for sleep, and still the old pills for headache. My glass of water was always near. My stomach was never empty. I felt heavy, but I told myself this was my life now. The first days I thought maybe the doctor was right. My head was not clear, but the pain was less sharp. I told myself, maybe it works. But soon the tiredness came. My arms were slow. My legs were weak. I wanted to read a book, but the words danced on the page. I wanted to play with my children, but my eyes closed after only 5 minutes. My husband tried to be patient. He asked me every night, "Did you take your pills?" I said yes. He asked, "Do you feel better now?" I said no. He sighed and turned away. He was tired too. I saw it in his face. He worked all day, and now he came home to a wife who could not cook or clean. I felt guilty. One evening he came home and found the house dark. The curtains were closed. The food was cold on the table. I sat on the sofa, my head in my hands. He looked at me and said, "You are not the same. Where is my wife? Where is the woman I knew?" His words cut my heart. I wanted to shout, "I am still here!" But I had no strength. I only whispered, "The pain will not stop." The children saw the changes too. My daughter stopped asking me to play. She sat in her room and drew pictures alone. My son often went to his friend's house. I knew they missed me, but I was too weak to give them what they needed. I felt like a shadow in my own home. One night I woke up and looked at the clock. It was 2 a.m. I felt my heart race. My mouth was dry. I stood up and went to the kitchen. I opened the big box and looked at the bottles. They all looked back at me. I thought, which one is for this feeling? Which one will make me sleep? I chose one and drank it. Then another. So soon I lost count. I went back to bed and closed my eyes. The morning light came fast, but my body was heavy like stone. The doctor asked me to try yoga again. So I tried. I rolled out the mat and sat on the floor. My arms shook when I lifted them. My head spun when I bent down. After 10 minutes, I lay flat on the mat, too tired to move. I closed my eyes. I told myself I was doing relaxation, but in truth, I was only waiting for the time to pass. Meditation was not better. I sat in silence with my eyes closed. But instead of peace, I heard my own thoughts. I thought of bills, of my husband's sigh, of my children's quiet eyes. The doctor said to breathe slowly, but my breath felt like fire. After 5 minutes, I gave up. I thought, maybe my body is too broken for this. One afternoon, I walked to the pharmacy to buy more pills. The pharmacist looked at me with kind eyes. "You have many prescriptions," she said. I smiled weakly. "Yes, the doctor says I need them." She gave me the bags. They were heavy in my hands. On the way home, I felt ashamed. Other women carried food or clothes. I carried only pills. At home, I placed the new bottles in the box. The box was now full, too full. I pushed hard to close the lid. It made a loud sound. My daughter looked at me. "Mama, why so many?" she asked. I had no answer. I said, "Because Mama is not well." She turned away. The side effects grew. Some days my hands shook. Some days my eyes were too dry. I tried to cook but burned the food. I tried to wash clothes but forgot them in the machine. My husband looked at me and said, "These pills are not helping. They make you worse." I wanted to agree, but what could I do? Without them, the pain was still there. With them, I was slow and weak. One Sunday, I sat on the balcony. The sun was warm. Children played in the street. I held a glass of water with 2 pills inside. I looked at them for a long time. I thought of my life before. I remembered running with my children in the park. I remembered laughing with my husband at night. Where was that life now? I felt like it was gone. Still, I drank the water. The pills went down my throat. They sat in my stomach like stones. I waited for relief, but none came. Later that day, my mother visited. She looked at me with sad eyes. She said, "You look so pale. What is happening?" I wanted to say the truth. I wanted to say, "I am drowning in pills." But I only said, "The doctor gave me medicine." She shook her head. Medicine is good when it helps, but too many can take your life away. Her words stayed in my mind long after she left. At night I tried to sleep again. I closed my eyes, but the thoughts ran fast. I thought of the big box in the kitchen. I thought of my mother's words. I thought of my children, alone in their rooms. I felt like I was outside of my own life, looking in. The next morning I tried to smile. I cooked bread for my children. I put butter on it. They ate quietly. My son asked, "Will you come to my school play?" My heart jumped. I wanted to say yes, but the truth was, I did not know if I would be strong enough. I looked at his small face and said, "I will try." He nodded. My daughter looked down. She did not believe me. In the afternoon, I tried to clean the house. I held a broom in my hand. After 5 minutes, my arms felt like lead. I sat on the chair and held my head. The pain came back, harder. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break the box of pills, but I only sat there. Tears ran down my face. My husband came home and saw me crying. He did not shout this time. He sat beside me. He said, "I don't know how to help you." His voice was soft. I felt a small comfort, but also more pain. I wanted him to save me, but I knew he could not. That night I opened the box again. I looked at the rows of bottles. I thought of my life with them. Pills for morning, pills for night, pills for stress, pills for sleep. The box was now part of my family. It sat on the table like another person. I hated it, but I could not throw it away. The days passed. Each day was the same. Wake up, take pills, feel tired, feel pain, wait for night, take more pills. I was alive, but I was not living. One evening I walked outside alone. The air was cool. The sky was pink with sunset. I heard children laugh in the street. I thought, I want that again. I want to laugh too. But then I felt the weight in my stomach from the pills. I knew the truth. My life was tied to that box now. I went back inside. My children were in their rooms. My husband sat in front of the television. I sat at the table with the box. I opened it slowly. I looked at each bottle. My hands trembled. I whispered to myself, "These pills did not heal me. They only changed me." I woke early that morning. The house was quiet. I held the box of pills and sat near the window. The light was soft. I thought of the week before. I had seen a nurse, spoken to a woman at church, and tried to walk each day. These things gave me small hope, but the pain was still there. The nurse listened to me. She said, "Tell me all." I told her about the pills, the nights with no sleep, and my fear. She said, "You are not alone. We can try talk therapy." I had never done this, but I agreed. At the therapy room, I spoke slowly. I learned to name my feelings. I said, "I am afraid." That felt strange, but true. The therapist gave me small lessons to use when fear came. For a short time, I felt lighter. A woman from church, Lena, also helped me. She said, "Small wins matter." She showed me how to write a list, walk 10 minutes, drink water, call a friend. I did some items each day. The list made me feel less weak. My husband saw me try. One night he made tea and said, "I see your effort. I am here." His words gave me a little light. The children came near again too. My daughter held my hand while we watched a show. My son read me a book. These moments were gentle. But not every day was good. One morning the pain came back strong. I could not walk or meet the therapist. I took more pills than the doctor said. I slept long hours and woke feeling worse. My husband found me and looked afraid. "Why so many?" he asked. I said, "The pain was too much." At the clinic, the doctor warned me, "Too many pills can harm you." He gave me a new plan. Fewer pills, more small steps. I wanted to believe, but I was scared. I had lived with pills for so long. At home, I placed the new plan beside the box. The plan had dates and tasks. Walk, write, while rest. My husband said, "We will try. Together." I felt a little courage. The first week was hard. I took one less pill one day. That night my head hurt again. I wanted to quit. But Lena came with soup. She said, "One day at a time." Her words gave me strength. I began a diary. I wrote one line each night. Sometimes I wrote about light on the table. Sometimes about my son's laugh. The words gave me a place to put my fear. They did not end the pain, but they helped. Some weeks were better. One night I slept 4 hours with fewer pills. I told my husband, and he smiled. We ate simple food together. The children were happy to see us laugh. These were small days of peace, but stress returned. Money was short. The children needed shoes. My husband was tired from work. Fear came back into my body. I returned to the pills. The box grew full again. I felt angry but helpless. One night I opened the box. I whispered, "These pills did not heal me. They only changed me." I thought of the nurse, the therapist, and Lena. I thought of my husband and children. They gave me care, but the pain still lived with me. The next day I went to the market. A woman smiled and said, "You look tired, but you are brave." Her words touched me. I told my husband. He said, "You are brave in small ways." I held his hand. I wanted to believe him. Time passed. The box never left our table. Sometimes it was more full, sometimes less. I learned to live between small steps and many pills. Some days I walked outside. Some nights I wrote in my diary. Other days I gave up and reached for the box. The year ended and the pills were still with me. They did not cure me. They were part of my life. The small steps gave me light, but the box stayed in the house like a shadow. One evening, I sat near the window. The sky was red with sunset. I read my diary. One line said, "Today, I walked to the shop." I smiled and cried. I had small wins, but I was not healed. The pills were still on the table. My life was not free. We all go through hard times, but stories like this can help us feel seen. Thank you for watching, and come back for more real moments. My name is Emily. I was born in Dayton, Ohio. The town was small and life was simple. I went to school there and I knew many people, but even as a child, I felt different. I did not feel at home in Dayton. I wanted to see more. I wanted to see the world. When I was 13, my parents started to travel. My father got a job that sent him to other countries. My mother went with him, and they took me too. That was the first time I left Ohio. That was the first time I saw another part of the world. Our first long trip was to Japan. I still remember the plane ride. It was very long, but I was full of excitement. When we arrived in Tokyo, everything looked new to me. The streets were busy and the signs were bright. People moved fast, and I felt like I was in another life. We stayed in Japan for 6 months. I went to school there, and it was very different from my school in Dayton. The children wore uniforms. They were polite and quiet. The teachers were kind, but very strict. At first, I was shy. I did not know the language. But little by little, I learned some words. I learned to say hello and thank you. I learned to eat with chopsticks. Food was also new for me. In Ohio, I ate burgers, pizza, and pasta. In Japan, I ate rice, fish, and noodles every day. At first, it was hard, but after some time, I began to like it. I even asked my mother to buy Japanese food when we came back home later. The people were also interesting. They were polite and quiet, but also warm when you spoke to them. I liked the way they respected each other. Even as a teenager, I saw that culture was not the same everywhere. That idea stayed in my mind. After Japan, we moved to Europe for a year. We lived in France first. I loved France because of the food. The bread, the cheese, and the small cakes were so good. My parents liked to go to cafes, and I went with them. We sat outside, drank hot drinks, and watched people walk by. The streets were full of small shops. The air smelled of coffee and fresh bread. But life in France was not easy. The people spoke French, and I did not. Some people did not want to speak English. I had to learn basic French to buy things in stores. I remember standing in line and trying to say the right words. Sometimes people laughed at me, but sometimes they smiled and helped. After some months, we moved again. This time, we went to Germany. Life there was very different from France. The streets were clean, and the people were direct. They said what they thought, even to a stranger. It was new for me. At first, I did not like it. But later, I saw that it was honest, and I respected that. Germany also gave me another kind of food. Bread was darker, and meat was very common. I tried many kinds of sausages, and I liked them. The houses were big, and the towns looked safe. We lived near a park, and I often walked there after school. Later, we went to Italy. Italy was warm and full of colors. People spoke loud and laughed often. The food was simple, but very good. Pasta and pizza were not new for me, but in Italy, they tasted better. I still remember one evening when my parents took me to a small restaurant. The man who owned the place gave me free ice cream. I never forgot his smile. Travel in Europe taught me many things. I learned that every country had its own life. People thought differently, dressed differently, and lived differently. I also learned that life could be hard when you do not speak the language. I had to watch, listen, and learn all the time. When I came back to Ohio after these travels, I felt strange. My friends were still the same. They went to the same school, met the same people, and ate the same food. They talked about sports and small events in town. I listened, but I felt far away. I had seen other places, and I could not forget them. I missed Japan. I missed the quiet streets and the small houses. I missed Europe, too, the cafes in France and the food in Italy. I even missed the strict but clear life in Germany. Dayton felt too small for me now. I wanted to see more. When I turned 16, I told my parents I wanted to travel again. They were surprised, but they were not against it. They knew I was curious. They knew I wanted more than Dayton. So they helped me plan my first small trip. I started with Mexico. It was close to the United States, and I could drive there. My parents were worried, but they let me go with a friend. We crossed the border and drove south. At first, the land looked dry and simple. But as we went deeper, we saw towns full of life. In Mexico, people were warm and open. They smiled and spoke to us, even if we did not know much Spanish. The food was new for me. I ate tacos and fresh fruit. I drank sweet drinks with ice. We stayed in small hotels and sometimes in homes of people who offered to help us. I learned that travel was not always easy. The roads were not always good. The cars were old, and sometimes we had to stop for hours. But I did not care. I was free, and I was learning. I was meeting new people and seeing new places. After Mexico, we drove all the way down to Panama. Each country had its own face. In Guatemala, I saw old temples from the past. In Costa Rica, I saw the sea and the jungle. In Panama, I saw the canal and the big ships. Each place was different, and each place stayed in my memory. These trips taught me something. Travel was not only fun, travel was education. I learned how to speak with people I did not know. I learned to be patient when things were slow. I learned to be kind when I needed help. And I learned that the world was bigger than Ohio, bigger than the United States, and bigger than I could ever imagine. By the time I turned 18, I was not the same girl who was born in Dayton. I had seen many places, eaten many foods, and met many people. I was ready to travel even more. I knew that this was my life now. Travel was not just a dream. Travel was my way of living. Before I continue my story, please subscribe, share, and and tell me where you are listening from. Your support means a lot to me. Now let's continue. After high school, I did not want to stay home. Many of my friends went to college in Ohio. Some stayed close to their families. But I felt different. I wanted to keep moving. I wanted to keep learning. So I decided to travel by myself. My parents were not happy at first. They wanted me to stay safe. They thought travel was dangerous. But they also knew me well. They knew I could not stay in one place. So they gave me some money and told me to be careful. I thanked them and promised to call when I could. My first solo trip was to Canada. It was close, and I could drive there from Ohio. I packed a small bag, got in my car, and drove north. Crossing the border felt exciting. I was alone, but I was free. Canada was clean and open. The roads were wide, and the towns were calm. I stayed in small hotels and met other travelers. They were from many places. Some were from Europe, some from Asia, and some from South America. We talked about our trips, and I learned new things from them. I drove through Toronto, Montreal, and Quebec City. Each city was different. Toronto was big and modern. Montreal had French signs and French voices in the street. Quebec City looked old, with stone houses and narrow streets. It felt like Europe, but it was still close to home. That trip made me stronger. I learned to plan, to read maps, and to be patient when I got lost. I learned to fix small problems with my car. I also learned to trust myself. If I wanted something, I could find a way. After Canada, I wanted more. I wanted to see places far away. So I saved money and booked a flight to South America. My first stop was Brazil. Brazil was full of music and color. The people were warm and full of life. They loved to dance and sing. Even if I did not know Portuguese, I could feel their joy. I visited Rio de Janeiro and saw the big statue on the hill. I went to the beach and saw the ocean shining in the sun. From Brazil, I took buses to other countries. I went to Argentina. There, I ate steak and watched people dance tango in the street. I went to Chile, where the mountains touched the sky. I saw snow and felt the cold air on my face. In Peru, I visited Machu Picchu. The old stones stood strong on the hill. I felt small next to them, but also lucky. I was standing in history. Travel in South America was not always easy. The buses were slow. The roads were long. Sometimes I waited hours in stations. Sometimes I slept in cold places. But I never gave up. Each new country gave me new energy. Each border made me curious. When I came back to Ohio, I felt even less at home. Dayton looked small. The streets looked quiet. My friends talked about jobs, cars, and parties. I listened, but I did not feel part of it. My mind was full of images from Brazil, Argentina, and Peru. I wanted to go again. Soon, I planned a trip to Asia. I wanted to see more than Japan. This time, I chose Thailand. Thailand was hot and full of smells. The streets were busy with markets. People sold fruit, rice, and clothes. I ate food that was spicy and sweet at the same time. I saw golden temples and monks in orange clothes. The people were kind. Even when I got lost, someone always helped me. From Thailand, I went to Cambodia. There, I saw Angkor Wat, the huge temple. I walked for hours, looking at the old walls. I felt the weight of history again. It was quiet, but I could feel stories in the stones. After that, I went to Vietnam. The roads were full of motorbikes. The noise was loud, but the people smiled. I took a small boat in the river and saw houses on the water. I ate soup in small shops and sat on low chairs. The taste was simple but good. These trips in Asia taught me more than school ever did. I learned about faith, about old history, and about people who lived very different lives. I saw children play in poor towns, smiling with no toys. I saw old men sitting under trees, drinking tea and talking for hours. Life was slower, but also rich in another way. I wrote letters to my parents during this time. I told them I was safe and happy. My mother still worried, but she was also proud. My father said, "You are learning more than I ever did." That made me smile. When I turned 21, I felt ready for bigger trips. I wanted to see more of the world. I wanted to visit Africa. My first stop in Africa was Morocco. The streets were full of colors. Markets had spices, carpets, and lamps. The air smelled of food and smoke. People spoke Arabic, but many also spoke French. I walked through old streets and felt like I was in another time. From Morocco, I went south. I visited Kenya. There, I saw animals I had only seen in books. Lions, elephants, and giraffes walked free. I took a jeep with other travelers and watched them in the wild. It felt unreal, like a dream. Later, I went to South Africa. Cape Town was by the sea, with big mountains behind it. I climbed one of the mountains and looked down at the city. The view was wide and beautiful. I felt small, but also strong. Africa showed me another side of the world. Life was not easy for many people there. Some lived in small houses with little money, but they still laughed and welcomed me. They gave me food and a place to sit. I saw that kindness was everywhere, even where life was hard. When I came back home again, I was different once more. I had stories from Asia, South America, and Africa. My mind was full of faces, places, and moments. I could not stop. I knew now that my life was travel. I started to plan for Europe again, but this time I wanted to go alone, without my parents. I wanted to test myself. I began in Spain. The streets were wide, and people loved to eat late at night. I tasted tapas, small plates of food, and drank juice while people talked loudly around me. I visited old churches and looked at the art. From Spain, I went to Portugal. The streets went up and down, and I saw the ocean every day. I listened to sad songs called Fado, and I felt the deep voice of the singer. Later, I went to the north. I visited Norway. The land was cold but beautiful. I saw long lakes and high mountains. I stayed in a small house near the water. The air was clean, and the nights were quiet. Travel in Europe was easier than in Africa or Asia. The trains were fast, and the cities were close to each other. But each country still had its own culture, its own food, and its own voice. I saw that no two places were the same. By this time, I had filled my life with journeys. I did not want to stop. I had seen many countries, but I wanted more. The world was big, and I was still young. I had energy, and I had dreams. I was ready for my next chapter. By the time I was 25, I had been to many places. I had walked in Asia, South America, Africa, and Europe. I had seen mountains, oceans, and deserts. I had tasted foods from every corner of the world. I had met people with different faces, different voices, and different lives. I was not the same person who once lived in Dayton. When I looked back, I saw how travel changed me. In Dayton, I was quiet and shy. I was afraid to speak to strangers. I did not like new things. But travel pushed me out of that life. I had to talk to people in markets. I had to ask for help when I was lost. I had to eat food I did not know. Each small step made me stronger. I also learned patience. Buses were late. Roads were broken. Hotels were full, and trains stopped for hours. I waited. I watched. And I learned to stay calm. At first I was angry when things did not go as planned, but later I accepted it. Travel taught me that not everything can be controlled. Another thing I learned was respect. In each country, people had their own way of life. They prayed in temples, in churches, or in mosques. They ate with hands, with forks, or with chopsticks. They lived in small homes or big houses. Each way was different, but each way had value. I saw that there was no single right way to live. There were many ways. Travel also gave me joy. I remembered faces more than places. The woman in Mexico who gave me water on a hot day. The man in Italy who gave me ice cream for free. The family in Africa who invited me to sit with them even when they had little food. These small acts stayed with me. They showed me that kindness was everywhere. I also remembered moments with nature. The sound of the ocean in Brazil. The white snow on the mountains in Chile. The quiet lakes in Norway. The wide desert in Morocco. The world was not only cities and streets. The world was also land, water, sky, and air. I felt part of something bigger when I stood in those places. Back in Ohio, people often asked me why I traveled so much. They asked why I did not buy a house or settle in one city. I always answered the same. A house could wait. Travel could not. The world was wide, and life was short. I wanted to see as much as I could. Some people did not understand. They thought I was running away. They thought I was afraid to grow roots, but I did not feel that way. For me, travel was not escape. It was education. It was discovery. It was life itself. When I met new people on the road, I also met parts of myself. I learned I could live with little money. I learned I could sleep in a small room and still feel rich. I learned I could be alone and not feel lonely. Travel gave me freedom, but it also gave me strength. I never forgot the lessons from Japan. Be polite. Be kind. Be respectful of others. I never forgot the lessons from Europe. Culture is rich. Art and food can bring joy. I never forgot the lessons from South America. Music, dance, and spirit can make life bright even when life is hard. I never forgot the lessons from Africa. People can smile even with little. Kindness is not about wealth. It is about heart. Sometimes when I was tired, I thought about Dayton. I thought about my school, my street, and my friends. I still cared about them, but I knew I could not go back to the life I had before. I was not the same girl. I was a traveler now. The world was my home. At 30, I slowed down a little. I still traveled, but I stayed longer in each place. I wanted to feel more, not just see. I spent 3 months in Thailand. I learned to cook their food. I learned more words in their language. I made friends who still wrote to me later. In Spain, I stayed for half a year. I helped in a school to teach English. The children were full of energy. They asked me about America, and I asked them about Spain. We shared stories, and I learned as much from them as they learned from me. Travel was not always safe. I lost my bag once. I missed a train another time. I got sick in South America and had to stay in bed for a week. But I always recovered. Each problem was part of the story. Each mistake was part of the lesson. Now, when I look back, I do not think of money or things. I think of faces. I think of voices. I think of places where I stood and felt alive. I do not have a big house. I do not have many things. But I have memories, and they are enough. Travel taught me one simple truth. The world is bigger than any one place. When you see more, you understand more. When you meet people who live differently, you learn to be open. When you walk in another land, you carry part of it with you. I am not done yet. I still have places I want to see. I want to visit India and see the Taj Mahal. I want to see Australia and watch the kangaroos jump. I want to go to Egypt and look at the pyramids. I still have time and I still have dreams. But even if I stopped today, I would be happy. I have lived a life full of travel. I have learned from the world. I have lived with open eyes. And when people ask me where I come from, I still say Dayton, Ohio. But in my heart, I know I come from many places. I am not only from one city, I am from the world. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it made you smile and dream. If you like stories in easy English, please subscribe. Like and share this video to help more people learn.